There exists a turning point that often goes unnoticed. It's not charted on life's roadmap, discussed in education, noted on calendars, or mentioned in familial wisdom. Yet eventually, it arrives and alters everything. Have you ever experienced a moment that arrived without warning, without reason, yet quietly changed everything inside you? Comment 1 if you've already walked through such a moment. Comment 2 if you sense it's approaching. Typically, this shift appears around age 60. Outwardly, life appears relatively unchanged. The body slows slightly, routines become simpler, and feelings more subdued. Yet internally, a subtle but significant change begins. The soul starts to alter course. This isn't a dramatic or visible change. Instead, it feels as though something deep inside gradually lets go of former pursuits. The urge to seek approval diminishes. The compulsion to validate oneself fades. Even ambitions, once deeply valued, start to lose their importance. The soul seems to turn inward, not in retreat, but in a symbolic return, seeking what was lost amid the debris of rushed living, buried sacrifices, and the silent voids we never had the courage to confront. As Carl Jung noted, the early years of life focus on shaping the ego, while the latter half involves reconnecting with the soul. This reconnection is painful by 60. The soul grows intolerant of facades. It refuses inauthenticity and rejects anything unnatural, insisting instead on truth. Embracing truth may mean recognizing that much of life was spent merely surviving. By 60, many experience a peculiar detachment, as if the life once filled with meaning now feels like a scripted act. Although everything may seem steady externally, many feel a profound inner exhaustion, not of the body, but of existence itself. This isn't sadness, it's insight. It's the soul quietly urging. It's time to shift paths and look inward for what external pursuits cannot provide. During this period, people often reevaluate their lives, their relationships, careers, past decisions, and emotional scars. These reflections reemerge not to cause pain, but to be embraced and unified. At 60, the soul seeks completeness. The soul no longer desires status possessions or physical change. Instead, it yearns for tranquility, stillness, and confirmation that beauty and meaning persist, that something vital remains to be discovered. This is a period of symbolic purification, a time to unlock inner spaces, let go of inherited fears. Forgive those who lacked the ability to love genuinely and relinquish the constant need to appear strong. It's a time to face the mirror and truly see oneself unmasked, unadorned, and without falsehoods. Those who step through this threshold with bravery uncover something extraordinary. They realize that the soul remains ageless. It merely returns to its most authentic state. What once appeared to be a conclusion reveals itself as the beginning of a deeper, freer, more genuine way of life. This is the hidden truth. Few discuss, the subtle curve few acknowledge. Yet for those attuned to their soul, it becomes a path back to their true home. Some label it maturity, others aging. But what it truly signifies transcends language. At 60, the body may grow slower, yet within the soul, there's a quiet acceleration, as though all that was deferred now insists on being acknowledged. It's as if the unresolved aspects of life softly murmur, "The time is now." What's peculiar is that this transformation occurs not externally, but within the unseen depths. Then one day, without a clear cause, you wake up sensing that certain outfits feel out of place, that some dialogues lack meaning, and that former sources of pride now seem heavy. The soul starts posing questions. What still stirs me? Which parts of me remain unshaped by others' expectations? What would I pursue if pleasing others no longer mattered? These inquiries aren't random. They emerge like the first seeds of a new chapter. At 60, time is no longer judged by how much remains, but by how deeply it's lived. The sense of urgency now comes from within the soul, not external pressures. Carl Jung believed that once the stages of adjustment and achievement are complete, the human psyche seeks to become whole again. And that can only happen when there's room to face what was left behind. What Jung referred to as the shadow starts to seek acknowledgement. This shadow isn't negative. It's merely the neglected parts of your personal narrative. These include the experiences you weren't able to live, the aspects sacrificed to conform the hurt child within the stored away dreams, and the intuition that was muted. Around age 60, all these elements return, not as burdens, but as opportunities. It's quite normal at this point in life to feel an unexpected desire to shift paths, whether by returning to education, ending harmful connections, or starting anew where it once felt impossible. Why does this happen? Because the soul isn't governed by chronological time. It responds to an inner summons. When the soul understands that it has survived despite life's struggles, that life still exists within it, makes another attempt. It wants to live the rest authentically. This is why many women truly flourish during this phase. They no longer apologize for themselves, diminish their power, or seek validation for simply being. When you no longer seek to be understood or approved, a quiet kind of radiance begins to emerge. Comment 1 if you're beginning to feel that unfolding. Comment 2 if you're still learning how to live unapologetically. The kind of beauty that reveals itself at 60 isn't about physical appearance. It's rooted in liberation, authenticity, and inner completeness. This form of beauty can be unsettling to those who remain focused on surface-level living, because it is profoundly sincere, understated, and genuine. Those who possess it feel no urge to justify themselves. Maybe you've sensed deep inside that this pivotal moment has come, that your former roles no longer define you, and there's an inner yearning for greater depth, a desire to focus on what genuinely matters, to say no without regret, and yes from the heart. This instinct isn't selfish. It's a sign of awakening, the start of a new life phase. It's a chapter where you stop living for others and start living in alignment with your inner self. Those who meet this change with bravery find something precious, the peace that comes from being fully themselves, free from fear, as the soul is finally permitted to live according to its natural rhythm. There's a truth that's rarely spoken, yet widely felt at this life stage. It's the recognition that much of life was devoted to others, the children, spouse, family, career, and social responsibilities, leaving behind a strange sense of emptiness and unused space. And it's within that very emptiness that the soul finally starts to stir. It no longer seeks usefulness, it seeks authenticity. In a society that idolizes productivity, this may appear odd, yet the soul's purpose isn't to produce, it's to be complete. By 60, it softly declares, I've obeyed all expectations. Now, it's my time. Such a shift in priorities can be unsettling, especially since no one teaches you to expect it. While society often views aging as deterioration, Jung perceived it differently as the most meaningful and promising phase of life. At this point, the ego starts to release its grip, pride diminishes, and time begins to uncover long-hidden truths. Often, powerful memories from childhood, important individuals and places filled with yearning come flooding back. Yet this isn't mere nostalgia. It signals that the soul is reviewing its inner records, seeking to grasp lingering pain, unresolved questions, and enduring emotions. To do this, it requires stillness. The soul does not raise its voice now. It sighs, it breathes, it gently communicates in the quiet corners of daily life. Through repeated dreams, sudden feelings, and unexplainable longings, you start to notice that some relationships no longer resonate. Certain beliefs no longer stir you, and past wounds no longer shape your identity. It feels like the soul is asserting its independence, declaring, I'm in charge now. But for this to unfold, you must be attentive. Pay attention to the sorrow that comes unprovoked to the body, requesting more rest, to the dullness that replaces past enthusiasm. Each is a subtle sign of an internal shift. This isn't a surface level shift. It's foundational. It dismantles old identities, erases former roles, and brings you face to face with the truth you've long evaded, your own essence. At this pivotal moment, many encounter spirituality not as a set of beliefs, but as something deeply felt, a presence, a profound internal clarity. Jung once remarked that enlightenment doesn't come from picturing light, but by facing one's darkness. At 60, this insight gains deeper significance. Now, darkness is no longer an adversary. It becomes a gateway, a nurturing space where something new starts to take shape. What used to feel like isolation transforms into a reunion with what is essential, with what has always been present, silently awaiting your recognition. It's intriguing how by 60, even language transforms. Take time, it no longer implies urgency, but begins to represent presence. You cease to count your days by accomplishments, and instead, experience them through their depth, the authenticity of each act, and the tranquility found in life's quiet pauses. Love, too, evolves at 60. It sheds its expectations and illusions and becomes an intentional act. Love is no longer about completion, but companionship. It doesn't seek attention. It becomes silent understanding, a knowing look, a respectful presence. Fear, conversely, begins to loosen its hold. Life has shown you enough that small things no longer scare you. After countless falls and recoveries, fear simply reflects the strength you've built. By age 60, a unique wisdom emerges, one that defies explanation. It's a clarity not learned from books, but earned through wounds, a knowledge embedded in the body, reflected in the eyes, and naturally communicated. This very wisdom is what unsettles others, those still performing for ego, who mistake value for image, who equate youth with strength, unaware that a matured soul offers immense creative potential. It is in this phase that life's most beautiful aspects arise: heartfelt stories, sincere counsel, and pauses that bring healing. Yet only what has bravely faced an ending can be truly reborn. At 60, certain attachments must be released. The craving for validation, the illusion of command, the compulsion to rescue others, and the burden of perfectionism. Letting go isn't about loss. It's about returning to what's most true within you. Comment 1. If you feel yourself softening into that truth. Comment 2. If old roles still feel hard to set down. Letting go of these things leads to something remarkable, a new way of breathing, as if the soul, after years of compression, finally opens a window. From within, everything begins to feel more vibrant, more attuned, and more genuine. This is why, at this stage, many feel an intense pull to write, create, wander alone, return to study, meditate, or travel, not to explore locations, but to discover themselves through those settings. The soul yearns to express it, craves freedom from constraints and desires, recognition not from others, but as a form of self-acknowledgement. Every step taken along this journey becomes a healing process, not through medication, but through reconciliation with one's life experience. There's no longer a desire to return to the past or hurry toward the future. The desire now is to fully inhabit the present. And this is the truest form of wisdom, to be wholly present, without concealing any part of yourself, without regret for the time it took, and without seeking approval to start anew. A unique inner season emerges only after turning 60. Unlike the swift and promise-filled spring of youth, this is a calm and seasoned bloom, rooted in experiences that have weathered many hardships. And when it blossoms, it does so with authenticity. This phase follows its own tempo, demanding less from the body, but much more from the soul. It encourages you to reflect on the unspoken commitments of your life, the words left unsaid, the difficult concessions made, and the promises you whispered to yourself as a child. This is a moment of making peace with your past. But now, instead of blame, there is understanding and compassion. You no longer criticize your past actions. Instead, you acknowledge them, make sense of them, and hold your earlier selves with the gentleness of someone who knows they did their best with what they knew. This kind of understanding isn't passive, it's freeing. Only those who fully forgive themselves can move forward with lightness. And at 60, this lightness becomes vital, not the kind that denies pain, but one that accepts it without letting it dominate. Longing may still be present, but it no longer feels burdensome. Absence may still be felt, but it no longer holds you back. Jung described this phase as late individuation, It's as though after a lifetime of adapting to the external world, the soul finally proclaims, "Now, I want to discover who I am." This self-discovery is the most profound of all silent, profound, and authentic. It doesn't seek validation or explanation. It's simply a return to the self. At 60, this return manifests in subtle moments: a walk without purpose, a book that stirs tears, an old song that rekindles memories, a sunset that feels fresh, a reunion with a part of yourself long buried. The soul is moved by simplicity, not out of increased sensitivity, but because it is now open without armor, unafraid to feel deeply. This sensitivity should not be mistaken for weakness. It is a polished form of strength, forged through a lifetime of experience, endurance, and profound emotion. At the same time, it opens the path to a rare wisdom, one that doesn't aim to instruct, but to inspire. By 60, the need to persuade others fades. You begin to live authentically with dignity and mindful presence. This presence affects those around you, your children, grandchildren, friends, and even people you don't know. A soul that reaches wholeness radiates light, impacting its surroundings. A certain kind of beauty emerges only once the rush has subsided. It appears in facial lines, in quiet pauses, in eyes that carry deep stories yet remain open to wonder. It's a natural, unfiltered, effortless beauty, and precisely because of that, it's the rarest of all. This beauty does not clamor for notice. It quietly shines. It doesn't seek the spotlight, it simply endures. Those who carry this beauty often don't recognize it, having spent their lives trying to meet standards that overlook their inner radiance. But by the age of 60, this beauty starts to surface when you cease resisting the passage of time. It reveals itself when you stop seeking affirmation through others, and when you finally see your own journey with all its pain and decisions as something to be honored. This beauty is seen in the woman who walks alone, yet does not feel alone, in the man who weeps silently without shame, and in the voice that remains quiet without compromising its truth, in choices that require no justification, and in love that asks for nothing in return. At this stage, the soul finds its voice, a language made of presence. You start to grasp what it really means to be present. You begin to discern the difference between hearing and heartful listening, between speaking and conveying something meaningful. Relationships evolve too. You begin to distance yourself from what depletes you and gravitate toward what sustains you. When you're alone, you realize you've learned to enjoy your own company. That is true freedom. When solitude becomes not a lack of others, but a fuller presence of yourself. When silence shifts from being uneasy to becoming a sanctuary. When time stops being measured and turns into open space to breathe, reflect, feel, and live with greater ease. At 60, you understand there's no need for explanation. You simply exist authentically. Those who understand you will remain. Those who don't will drift away. But that no longer wounds you, because you know only an awakened soul can truly recognize another. The purest connection lies in that silent, unspoken recognition. A bond that does not restrict, expect, or dominate, but gently permits, like two mirrors, facing each other like a silent dance, like knowing deep down that wholeness is still attainable. As the soul shifts course, all that was buried surfaces sometimes as a gentle wind, sometimes as an internal quake. But it always carries a call to finally be yourself free from fear. And that asks for release of past selves, of narratives imposed by others, of the need to be efficient, praised, flawless. At 60, it's not about your actions, but how you feel while doing them, the purpose behind them, the spirit in your voice. You come to see that your most powerful lessons stemmed not from pain alone, but from your journey through it, from the choices made while hurting, from the silences you held while internally shouting, from the limits you finally set after long self-sacrifice. This unseen inner record is what supports you now. It won't be found in credentials or recognition, but in how you rise daily, how you regard those you love, and how you offer silent, undramatic forgiveness. As the soul evolves, it discovers the importance of trusting itself rather than others. It notices signals it once overlooked and develops deeper awareness of the body. It respects its inner rhythms and understands when to speak and when to remain silent, even if the voice trembles. This is not fragility, but wisdom. It is what endures when superficial layers dissolve. It is what blossoms when defenses are shed. It is what survives when one dares to live authentically without fear. Jung remarked, "The latter part of life is not about achievement, but about integration." It is the stage where everything once divided begins to unify. The neglected feminine, the repressed masculine, the hurt child, the wise elder, each comes together, recognizes the other, and acknowledges itself. From this union emerges a new form of strength. It does not overpower, but sustains, supports, and endures. It does not seek attention, for it glows from within. This is the strength that guides the soul through the years without diminishing. It demands little, only honesty, stillness, and the courage to never abandon yourself again. A time arrives when everything aligns, not due to changes in the world, but because something inside has finally reached peace. At 60, the soul no longer craves speed but yearns for depth. It no longer seeks ultimate answers but values presence. It no longer desires to conquer the world but seeks harmony within its own body. At this stage, many come to see that life was never about possession, but about existence. It is about being yourself, even if misunderstood. It is about remaining faithful to your truth, even if it is unwelcome. It is about being whole, even after countless breaks. By 60, losses have etched their scars. Illusions have been challenged, and life's paths have revealed both shortcuts and dangers. Yet something within continues to endure, breathing, dreaming, and choosing to live not out of obligation, but from joy. This gentle will to persist affirms that the soul remains alive. Carl Jung regarded this stage as the most sacred, for it is when the ego yields to the soul. The external world loses its dominance, while the inner world becomes a sanctuary. It is when one learns to walk free of the world's burdens and finally realizes the right to rest within oneself. This resting is not idleness but reconciliation with your story, your body time, light and shadow. In that stillness, the real meaning of life begins to reveal itself, not the one taught to you, but the one you discovered through experience. If you have read to this point, you may sense that inner call. Perhaps these words awakened forgotten parts of yourself. If something here has moved you, you share a sentence in the comments that reflects this new chapter within you, a quiet choice, an inner promise, a message from your soul. If you believe this video may resonate with someone navigating this stage, pass it along. And if you wish to continue this journey with us, a place where the soul is free to breathe, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications, for here, silence finds a voice, and every story is given space to flourish. When you no longer need others to understand you in order to feel whole, that's when the soul has truly come home. Comment 1 if you're beginning to feel that peace. Comment 2 if you're still on the path of rediscovering yourself.